Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Gorcom in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives about recent important press releases at their companies. With us today, I'm happy to have again Bernard Toudillon, Chairman and CEO of HPQ Silicon Resources. The company trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the stock symbol HPQ. This is a junior exploration company that has moved ahead in the process and is now planning to become a vertically integrated producer of high-value silicon metal. That's 3N purity, and solar-grade silicon metal, which is 5N purity, 99.999%. More than just lip service. November 29th, lab-scale testing of the company demonstrated the technology's ability to produce high-purity silicon metal at 99.99%. That's 4N. The company is now completing its final round of purity testing. Here to talk about what this news is and what the company is going to do going forward is Bernard. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, George.
All right, first press release. You put out a number of press releases since we last spoke, but a couple of technical ones, and the one I want to talk about was big. November 29th, you announced that the PureVap process successfully produced 4N silicon metal using very low-grade feedstock. How big of a milestone was it to break through that 4N and do it while using lower-grade feedstock?
It's massive, George. It's literally massive. Nobody in the world is able to do what the PureVap can do. To put it bluntly, in all the literature, all the documentation, all the system out there, it is clearly written that to make high purity metallurgic grade system, which is known as chemical grade, silicon metal 99.5, you need to start with at least 99.6 SiO2. So basically, in all the process available out there, it's impossible to go up in purity. You can only go down or maintain it. So we're the only process in the world that starts with basically shit. Excuse the term. That's basically what it is. It's close to being the white rocks you use for quartz decoration in the 1970s. We're old enough to know this. When people put quartz rock in this, that's what they were used for. Nice, shiny white rocks, but they can't really be used for anything else because there's too many impurities. Because when you're talking about a 98% impurity, you're talking about 10,000 ppms of impurities and more.
Parts per million.
Parts per million. And when you're looking at doing even if you're just looking to do a 99%, you go down to 1,000 ppm impurities. Well, you need 3 tons of quartz to do this. You're starting with 30,000 ppm of impurities combined together, trying to get it down. So it just no process has been able to do this. And that's what we've attained. Now we're just not only we attained this, but we went all the way to 4N with that material. And now between you, me, and the 4 walls, what I've been discovering is that 4N is pretty close to solar grade. Because solar grade is really what somebody takes to make a solar system out of it. And we'll explain more why I see the difference, but fundamentally, we're the only one in the world that can do this process. That means that in the 2.2 million ton per year market, which is the metallurgic grade industry, of which 50% of that market is used what's known as chemical grade. And when you use silicone in the medical field and everything else, you need ultra pure material. All right. The traditional process is unable to exceed 99.5% Si purity. And that they need ultra high purity material.
Okay, so that is massive. I mean, that's pretty significant. 99.5 to 99.99 is, are you almost understating how big this is?
I'm understating it for a very simple reason. Until we've demonstrated, that we can scale it up and do it commercially and our cost structures are there, then it'll become massive. What will happen is that every one of the milestones that we keep reaching, people are going to start scratching their head and says, why should I invest $300 million to build a simple plant that can only do 98 to 99% Si when I can go with the PureVap process? That is really the fundamental, long-term vision of the quantum leap that we're doing. I think I've explained it to you. The differences between a computer using, vacuum lamps and microchip.
So that perfectly dovetails with my next question, because you had a pretty big quote in there. If I can read it off, you said, "This result has come earlier than expected. Using lower grade feed speaks volume about the economic opportunities that pure VAP represents for HPQ Silicon and its numerous high-grade quartz deposits. So elaborate. If I take what you just gave me the answer, and I'd ask you to elaborate a little bit. It means there is no market that you can hit now just from the feedstock that you already have. Is that what you're saying? Because that's a pretty big quote.
Well, what happens is whatever the resource will eventually delineate on our properties. Okay, what happens? Our cutoff rate is completely unchanged. That's it. In simple, bloody mining term, we're just changing the cutoff rate. So, if you want to have volumes, well, you basically remove your cutoff rate. Right now, if our process required 99.9% SiO2 as feed material,
Right.
then the only part of the material that would be economical, okay, would be there. So rule of thumb is if you have about 1 million ton and your deposit's pretty homogeneous and everything else, 10% is going to be that. Okay, and the balance of it will give you a 98% average or whatever it is. But 98% is massive. I get phone calls from people, I got 20 million tons of 98%. Yeah, well, who cares? You know, it's like, you got to work it to get it pure and everything else. We don't have to do anything very specific. We just have to process it. So whenever we start to go on the delineation of resources and calculation of the value of our properties, what that means our cutoff rate is completely changed. In reality, we went as low down as 97.5, I believe, don't call me wrong. We went as low down as 97.5 to produce 99.93% Si. Chemical grade silicon metal, the highest purity that the traditional people in the industry can do is 99.5% SiO2.
Right. So there's almost no higher level market that's not within your reach. Assuming you can scale this up, and which is again a great segue into our next press release. But assuming you can scale it up, you can hit just about every market with what you've got in Quebec as far as your feedstock.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be just in Quebec. Anybody in the world that has to take a decision to do an investment is going to start knocking on our door. It will happen as we prove the scaling up and everything else. But people have to remember. And I was just redoing our new presentation, and I was just doing all because I had many discussions with people, federal government, provincial governments, everything else, and you sort of have to okay, show us all the milestones you've reached. And when I put that all in a chart, or just looking at the year, you go like, oh, we did achieve a lot of milestones. It's unfortunate investors only look at the milestone of the stock market, but when you're building a company and when you're going to deliver long-term values, those are the milestones important. The fact that the stock went to 30 cents, went down to 15 cents, moving back up 18, are fun milestone in our portfolio, all of us, okay? But they're not milestone in real generating value.
Yeah, no, real investors are looking at the long-term value here. That's so we won't even discuss that. Let's jump to January 26th press release.
Yes.
Where you change gears. You went from talking about purity to focusing on scale, and the headline was achieve significant scaling milestones, 9,000% increase in bench test sample size and 308% increase in capacity. So you emphasize scale over purity here. Why is that such a critical milestone? Because it almost sounds as if the scale was more critical than the purity up to this point.
Well, basically, when you're at lab scale, okay, and when you're using, laser system to calculate purity, you can basically say, I got this pen, okay, the top of the pen, we've made some ultra pure material. Big deal, just the top of the pen. You'll need to produce a lot. So for the moment, and there was a dual goal to this program, which is it was focused toward preparing the machine for the scaling up. So one of the goals was to demonstrate at lab scale that we could scale it up. Second of all, it's in the interim period when the lab scale, when the pilot equipment is going to be built, I'm going to get requests for samples. So luckily we can start to produce more and more samples to do and moving forward and everything else. But that became for all of us a much more important issue than purity because we understand the thermodynamics of purities, we understand how the recipe works. But if we can combine the two, repeat on a continuous basis, and basically know that we can generate with 98%, 3N plus, on-demand quantity, and we know it doesn't work. Now that we've done this, we also know how to scale up. So now we go back and we rework on purity. We go back and repeating the 4N plus and then shoot toward 5N. But it doesn't take rocket science to figure out that once you're able to start with 98% purity and get 4N plus, if you start with 99.5, as I told you, we're starting with a heck lower load of impurities in it, you know.
So you're sounding pretty confident. So go that's hopefully
Well,
for some foreshadowing there, because you're right. I would assume logic says if you go to 99.5% starting point in the feedstock, you should be able to do a lot better than you've done before. Now that you've figured out a lot of things.
Well, let's go through the beginning of this process. All right. I think I've issued a press release in many times. I tell them a theoretical model. All right. We're up to about 60 tests later. We're past theoretical model. We're now down to understanding how the process works and how every iteration of the process works. So we're now up to a point where we're flying it on computer modelization. Okay. We still haven't achieved the results out there, but computer modelization are telling us we're going to reach that goal. And the reason being lower grade material than higher grade material, it was basically fortuitous. It's an accident of development. We only had a limited quantity of the ultra pure stuff. And at the beginning, we wanted to put every chance on our side. So for the first series of batch tests, we used the ultra pure stuff. We just ran out of the ultra pure material, and everyone just continued working with the lower purity material we furnished. And we asked the questions, hey guys, which material are you using? Oh, we're using lower grade. Oh, okay, what purity we're making? That's how it occurred. It was basically, it's like, I'd love to say that it was a brilliant plan. It was always our goal as part of the metallurgy test to be able to say, okay, we're going to use lower grade material. But it was sort of done by accident. The results came back and surprised all of us and says, okay, let's try it. And I've been now pushing pyrogenesis to say, let's try to see how far we can go with the purity of this shitty material. We know how it's going to react with the high purity materials. Let's keep pushing it that way. It's just by a fluke. If we make 5N with 98, then basically I would dare to say it's game over without being game over because it's completely changed over.
Okay, so monster game changer, game over, because you're modeling it, but now you're going into testing where purity clearly is going to be the priority going forward because, and I'm quoting you here, producing solar grade silicon metal remains our primary objective. For the remaining tests, our intention is to focus solely on improving purity with a goal of producing minimum 5N material. What have you learned from the previous tests? So do you think you've got enough information on hand now that you've learned enough that you put you in a position to achieve 5N? Because it sounds like from the modeling you do, how likely is that you're going to be able to actually do that in the lab?
In the lab, it's not an issue because the process is working. It's a question of, there's many parameters we control. We understand how it works, understand how it removes. I think, as I said before, it's really a question of purity in, purity out, coming in, the load of purity and everything else. And I think there's other creative ideas that the guys at, the brain trust at Pyrogenesis wants to apply to see if we can, tweak it more. But I think the biggest thing we've learned since we've been involved in this story is that 6N is sort of a mythological number. And the reason behind this is that if you have a 4N, 5N closed type of process, the energy that your solar system can generate efficiency is about 18% conversion rate. If you go to 6N and you go to 20, 21, 22% conversion rate, that's the issue. Now, the entire reason why there's such a big debate about this goes about to the fact that the cost of polysilicon or the high purity silicon that we're making is the key ingredient into making it. Now, people have been scratching their heads trying to find ways to refine the process at the cusp to reduce the cost. But as far as I can read everywhere else, nobody has found a way really to bring the costs below down $15 a kilogram for it. You might have some at 12, but there's limited capacity to increase. But even if you have a system like Silicor Material, they're still going to invest $1 billion to build a plant. So you got all those incredible barriers to entries. So the people that are in the solar industry tried a different route. Okay, there's a lot of money that's invested into these solar wafer parts, which they take our material, make solar wafers out of it, try to increase the efficiencies, how you can increase the efficiency of the solar system and everything else. And one of the ways being done by this, and it's been pushed by Elon Musk of Solar City, is you use higher purity materials to get higher efficiency. So on the size of your solar system, all right, the energy cost is cheaper. So basically, it plays down the question of energy, return on energy cheaper because they can't reduce the cost. Now, if you can make, like we're looking to do, a 5N type material, and even if it generates 18%, but your cost is 90% cheaper,
Right.
then it changes completely the dynamic. That's what we've learned. Listen, I'm not hiding this. Alchem Solar in their material, they said, no, we won't tell you what our purity level is. Well, you do the back of the math, it's not even 5N, it's 4N, like this close to 5N, and they have an 18% efficiency. So what's going to happen now is with basically who do we partner up for the wafer business to see how high up the purities it goes in and out. But we have such a massive cost advantage that it really, we can make the 18% solar panels so bloody cheap and efficient that we could win the business. So is it worth our while to try to kill ourselves to go get that extra end to please Mr. Musk in his business plan? His business plan is to make solar system for houses. Okay, that's a nice market, but that's because there's a limited space on it. But our system can be different. So there's all those things that we've been learning and discovering and advancing and everything else, and now we're realizing that 6N is nice. It's the holy grail because of the cost. But the reality is 30% of the cost of any new solar system is what we produce. And if we can cut down to 5%, and those are the type of numbers we're starting to see because of multiple reasons. Because, all of our competitors start with metallurgy grade silicon metal. We start with quartz.
And if I do the math on the 6N, theoretically, a solar panel system would get 22% efficiency. 5N would get 18%. So it gives you an extra 20% efficiency. But if you give them 5N and reduce the cost by 90%, then you're more than making up by
you're
magnitude.
now understanding it. Yeah,
by
you now
magnitude,
understand
you're making it. So you don't have to get the 6N because you're producing 5N at 90% cheaper.
Basically, that doesn't mean that we're not going to shoot to try to go to 6N. Hey,
you can continue
if
going.
we go to 6N, if we can go to 6N, we will go to 6N. But when we look at all the theoretical information, what is feasible, what is out there, 5N is an easy looking target for us. Okay? It's an easy looking target because we can take 98% material and go 4N plus. Now, what's the plus? We don't know. What's left at the end? We don't know. We'll start to get those results before. And the reason is very simple. To speed up the entire process, now that we figure out that the laboratory in Montreal could do laser system, which we didn't know at the beginning, laser system all the way to 4N purity testing with the efficiency, then for us, it was very easy and very quick to play around with the 3N, the efficiency and scaling up, because we didn't have to send it to the US, wait 2 weeks for the result, blah, blah, blah. So it was really a question of speeding up the loop of information. Now that we've gone back to, okay, now we're above the testing quality of what it is, then it's moving on. That's, if we would have known that the Polytechnic Laboratory could have done it at the beginning, then we could have speeded up a bit more the process at the start where we had to send it to the US.
That's the idea behind testing, right? You learn.
That's the idea. It's basically
you don't know it all. That's why you're testing. So the great news is you've accumulated this unbelievable information, data along the way. So let me ask you a quick question. Final tests end in February, according to the press release. Can you give us a general ETA on when you expect results to come back? Ballpark? Is it a week? Is it a month?
No, I will not even try.
I'm trying anyways. Okay.
I will not even try.
I know everyone was thinking that, right? So I have to.
I know, but listen, it will come when it will come, and you'll be surprised. Hey, that's the way I do it.
All right. Last question.
Yes.
Last question. You snuck something into that press release. I don't know if other people noticed, but I noticed it. And it says, quote, pilot scale design is currently underway. So the design of the pilot plant is current. is that foreshadowing a great deal of confidence? That can I assume that, because that's what I read, but that's just one person. But
Okay.
is that foreshadowing a great deal of confidence that you're confident that you got enough information? The pilot scale plant is fait accompli.
Well, it's of course it's what type of question is this? I've committed, 4.3 million to build a bloody thing. I've already paid almost, a good third of it. And you're asking the question, you guys moving forward? Yeah, our timeline is that machine is operational by next year.
Yeah, I know you're going to be moving forward. The reason I asked that is, though, you had to make sure the lab results sufficient enough to warrant
I was confident. I was confident enough in the process when we got the lab scale results just producing anything that we were going to achieve the other objective. Okay? So I took we took an entrepreneurial decision for a very simplistic reason. There is a first mover advantage. All right? We have it. We own the intellectual properties. What was it worth our while to sit around? It would have been probably more logical to do everything else and just do the testing and everything else. But why go the logical way when you're trying to build something that's such a game changer? If you are the leading entity in this, you have to continue to push the envelope. And that's what we've done. We've pushed the envelope by doing two things in parallel. We walked and chewed gum. We continue the purity work while designing. This is why there was an iteration between the two factors combined. Because in their mind of pyrogenesis and our understanding, we weren't going to push too much to purity testing until the last phase of it. All right? That was always our goal. It's just that because we went to lower purity material, we by default ended up producing more material, ultra pure, confirmed the entire process, resolved all those issues, and got the process moving much faster. And, there's an incredible brain trust of people at Pyrogenesis that have been working on this process, and they come up with great solutions and getting things moving forward.
All right. So, hey, I had to ask you. You gave me a bit of a tongue lashing there, but I'm sure other people were thinking the same thing when that was in there.
I know.
Great to know. Honestly, this is one of the best interviews we've done, but more importantly, it's clear that HPQ is on the path now. It's not a case of if, it's just a case of degree of success. And that's what's going to be really exciting to watch in 2017 because the story is now just starting to accelerate. And I'm loving what you're talking about. So, yeah, you go ahead, Bernard. So
I just want to throw a last word about what we're doing is, and the technology is so advanced. It's funny because a lot of people compare us to Temenko, right? But what few people don't know is that the Temenko technology actually worked. It was bought by Ferro Atlantico, okay? And they've actually built a plant in Spain based on their technology that they've improved it. But they're only producing 4N close to 5N. So they also have a solar grade system and everything else. And even versus the dream of that technology that they've done, if I'm looking at the cost, we're still beating them. So just a quick funny part of it. A lot of people have been coming back to us about the Temenko situation. Temenko process actually worked. The problem was at what phase of the market they entered. Okay.
And cost for them as well.
Cost. And for me, that phase of the market, if I look at comparable right now, lithium to me smells like silicon was in the Temenko phase. That's my humble 2 cents opinion. I prefer the fact that we're the only player in the silicon metal industry. Maybe it's harder for us to go sell the story because we're the only one preaching into the desert. But once now that we're switching from silicon metal to the solar space and being such an important influence in the solar space, which is one of the growing key points in the industry, then that's going to change.
Yeah, solar's. There's no doubt about where solar is going. That's for sure. So, Bernard, thanks for joining us, man. This is the most, like I said, energetic and really, really great interviews that we've done, and I've got a feeling we're going to be doing a whole lot more of these in 2017. 1 or 2 a month. Looks like we'll be on scale on pace to 1 or 2.
Are you trying to make me say something that I don't want to say?
I always am. That's my job, right? That's my job is to push a little bit. I can't softball these things, right? Listen, what makes these interviews great is we're not softballing. I'm trying to push the envelope as much as I can, and you're great about what you can answer and what you can't. But thanks for joining us, and everyone at home, thanks for watching. You've been watching Bernard Tourillon. He's Chairman and CEO of HPQ Silicon Resources. Company trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the stock symbol HPQ. Find him on the web, hpqsilicon.com, and get to Agoracom, punch in the company's name or symbol. Get to the hub. Watch all the interviews that we've done with Bernard. He's delivered on everything he's promised. In fact, he's under-promised, over-delivered at the end of the day, and that's what we're so excited about the company. So thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a fantastic day. See you next time.